And we're joined now by North Country Assemblyman Billy Jones, who represents the 115th District covering Clinton and Franklin counties. Welcome. Happy New Year. Good to see you.
Happy New Year to you. Always a pleasure. As
we heard just a few moments ago, Governor Hochul gave her first State of the State address this week. We'll get into it more in just a moment, but she talked about the coronavirus pandemic and how the state is responding to it. Over the holidays, we've seen this past week in particular a significant increase in the number of cases here in the North Country as well as across the nation. Clinton and Franklin counties are under states of emergency once again. Is the state of New York right now doing enough to respond to this?
I think they are trying as much and doing as much as they can right now. I think we fell a little bit behind in getting the tests out, which you know from following the governor last week that she's really trying to catch up on that. Millions of rapid tests going out the door, the vaccination sites popping up. But I was happy that we were able to advocate in this area, and we have this testing site opening up in SUNY Plattsburgh and the one last week in Malone. So, you can always say, should have done more, would have, could have, should have, but I think we're trying to do the best we can. Maybe if we fell behind, we didn't expect this Omicron variant to come along or come as strong as it did or spread as quickly as it did, but certainly everything that New York State can do now, they are doing.
And they're stepping up. They've opened the two testing sites. They had the pop-up vaccination clinic and vaccinated several hundred people. So taking steps to try to get people vaccinated, get their booster shots, and get tested. We're hearing from so many people that want to get tested. And of course, the governor pitched the program that the test kits can go to the schools, go home with the kids. That way, if a classmate gets sick, the kids can test and still come to school and not have to spend several days at home doing remote learning. It is taking a few days to get up and running and get the kits to the schools. But are you hearing from the schools and the parents on whether they think this will be a good way to keep kids in school?
I think most parents want to see their kids in the classroom, as most of us do. I think the Test to Stay program, getting that going, moving that along, and trying to expedite that process as well will help with that. This keeps moving. It really does. It keeps, moving in ways that we didn't expect it to do. I think, like I said, we were a little behind in the testing, but this variant came on very quickly. We're trying to get the test out as quickly as possible. People want those tests in their hands, and we need to continue to work on that, certainly. But my advice to people would be, the best defense against the COVID-19 virus that we have is getting a vaccination and to vaccinate themselves and their children. So we need to follow these steps. I know everybody is tired. Everybody is frustrated with it. I'm tired with COVID-19. Everyone is frustrated and tired. But I think there is light at the end of the tunnel. And like we are saying, we're going to have to learn to live with this virus more and more. I think people understand that we don't have to close down the economy. We don't have to close down the schools. If we just keep doing the things that we need to do, we can live with this.
Some of the highlights of the State of the State. She talked about term limits for statewide officers, including governor, 2-term limit. Is that something you would agree with?
We've talked about this before as far as term limits. I'm not huge on term limits, to be honest with you. But I think the case can be made for limiting of a certain person when you're talking about individuals, limiting their power. But I've always said term limits happen at the polling place on election day. But we'll see. We'll see how that progresses. And I certainly agree with the no outside income while they're in office. I think that is the right way to go with that.
Some of the other proposals, she wants the $10 billion for the healthcare workers, expand the healthcare workforce in New York by 20%, bonuses, incentives for the healthcare workers already on the job, so critical right now during the pandemic.
Our healthcare workers are maxed out for sure. I think the 5-year plan that she has in $10 billion, some people may say that's too aggressive. Some people may say it's not aggressive enough, but I think it is a good plan. We need to incentivize and help out our healthcare workers. They're tired. We have a shortage in them, and I think it's great. I like what she is doing overall with them. I've often talked about home health care workers, home health care aides that we have in the North Country, or a lack of here. So to address that as well, we need to do that, especially in these rural areas where we want to keep people aging in place, keep them in their homes, and that has become a real issue here.
And she also talked a little bit about childcare and trying to boost the pay of childcare providers. But does the proposal that she made do enough to address the childcare issue, which, as we saw during the pandemic, has really become a much bigger issue for many families?
I think it's a step forward in helping the childcare crisis that we're having. And we're talking about workforce development. We're talking about the economy. We're talking about helping families get back on their feet. And certainly childcare, as we all know, is a huge issue. So I think it helps. Certainly, I think she had a proposal of putting $75 million towards workers, people that work in the child care industry. I think, you can always say we need more, but I think it's a step forward. I think acknowledging child care is a huge issue in that, and it is to our families all over the North Country, all over New York State, all over the country. It is a huge issue, and we need to continue to do more.
She spoke for about a half hour. Of course, she sends along the booklet that was more than 200 pages that spells out much greater detail for her proposals. You probably haven't been able to go cover to cover with the booklet, but what you've seen so far, what you heard in her State of the State, what items are you happy about?
I am thrilled that the governor has mentioned agriculture as a priority. She mentioned it a couple of times, mentioned farmers, mentioned where we get our food source, because I think just her mentioning that and shining a light on our agriculture industry, I haven't heard that in a State of the State address, and that is huge. That is huge. We know that our agriculture sector is one of the largest industries here in New York State, and to feed our people, get fresh food to our people. She wants to help out with their labor issues, their production costs, giving them tax credits. 5 pages in the booklet deal with specifics and helping out our farmers and our agriculture industry. I was elated to see that. Broadband, $1 billion initiative. I think it's great. Not only the money, but it seems like she wants to streamline the process in building out rural broadband, Connect All. I'm all for that. That is one of the biggest issues that we deal with in my office, and certainly it touches every facet of our lives now. Having good, reliable broadband is huge to our families and our businesses here. There are plenty of issues, small business, getting aid to our small businesses, helping them out with more tax credits, always huge. What I really liked about her speech, Tom, is she set the tone right off. And it was a spirit of collaboration. It's not about me, it's about working together to move New York forward, to move New Yorkers forward. That really, she made a point to say that, and that really, touched me as well.
She may not have singled out Andrew Cuomo by name, but she certainly talked about the former governor and the mayor and how they never got along, and saying that it's a new era of cooperation, a new era of getting things done, integrity. Along those lines, her proposal to get rid of the Ethics Commission, JCOP, and start over there, is that something you think has long been needed?
Certainly. I mean, JCOP from the start has been controversial at the least, political appointments, all kinds of things. We need a truly independent body to look at ethics violations and accusations of ethics violations, and I think she wants a clean slate on that. Wants transparency and a truly independent body to look at that. We all know the controversies behind JCOP with the former governor, and I think she wants to clear the air on that. I look forward to working with her on that, and we need that as well.
It is an election year. She is up for re-election. She has at least 2 opponents now. Tish James dropped out of the race. Is it too early to start picking which candidates you're going to back? Have you decided if you're going to back her for governor?
Yeah, I've already endorsed her. Yes. Yeah. And I just feel for the Democrat Party, I think she is the candidate.
Back to the State of the State, any big items, big ticket items that she didn't touch on, that she didn't discuss, that you didn't see in the 200-page booklet that you wish she had, that you think is important?
Yeah, I think public safety. I know she had touched on, the rise in gun violence, but we do have a rise in crime here in New York State. The numbers are going up. I wish she would have paid more attention to that. We'll see. We'll get to work on that. I know bail reform is a huge issue for my constituents here in the North Country and for many constituencies throughout New York State. We need to work on that, make some more changes. We've changed a little bit of the changes, but we need to work on that. Giving back judicial discretion, I think, would help out in that process. Public safety is a huge issue for people, a huge issue for people all over the country. I think if people, they want to feel safe and secure in their homes and their neighborhoods. So it's really an issue that comes across to everyone. So I think there needs to be a little more emphasis on that for sure.
You touched on broadband. Obviously, that's a big issue for you. $1 billion that the governor is talking about to dedicating, filling in the gaps. We know that here in the North Country, up to 20% of the folks still don't have access to or reliable broadband and high-speed internet.
She wants to streamline this process, the Connect All. She wants to get rid of, from what I understand, and something that I have been pushing for, is to get rid of the fees associated with building out broadband. We have the DOT tax, we have the surveying fees that utilities put on. This is, on one hand, we're saying we want to build out broadband to rural areas. We want to build out broadband throughout New York State and to the North Country here. But we're going to put another fee on here.
You mentioned the utilities charge fees. The state DOT charges a fee to run cable, to run fiber optic. You've had one bill pass so far, and you're introducing a second one that will address those issues. Your hope is that will allow the broadband providers to put their fiber optic cable, to string it, to get it into the areas it needs to go at a cheaper cost. And for many of them, is that the holdup right now, that these fees are driving up the cost so much that they're just not going into these areas?
Exactly, certainly. I mean, if you have a pot of, let's say, $10 million and the fees and other things are eating up so much of that, and $10 million only gives you, let's say, 100 miles of that, the more money that we can save on these fees and everything else, the more miles we can put out there and connect to more homes.
You called on Governor Hochul a few days ago to sign a series of bills passed by the legislature that you say will level the playing field for small, locally owned pharmacies. They deal with the middlemen, pharmacy benefit managers, known as PBMs, that negotiate prices and determine what insurance companies get, what pharmacies get for dispensing the drug. Small, locally owned pharmacies say often they end up losing money, which ultimately can put them out of business. The governor did sign 2 of the bills, which you must be happy about.
She did address that in the State of the State, saying that there'll be more oversight of PBMs. I mean, we still have to go through the budget process, saying that they'll set up a committee, a commission, something to have more oversight of these PBMs. That's what we wanted. That's what the bill essentially said. So we're encouraged by the language in the State of the State. We're encouraged by getting more oversight with these PBMs. For one, it'll save taxpayer money. For 2, it will help our local pharmacies, often the backbone in our communities. And what we have seen during this pandemic, a lot of people are depending on their local pharmacies, like they have always, but a lot of people are depending on their local pharmacies to get them through their daily lives. And I think it's great that there was mention of it in the State of the State. She signed 2 of the bills. I know our pharmacies are happy with that. I know that it'll help them out.
This week you held a news conference along the Welcome Center that's on the Adirondack Northway. It's about 15 miles south of the Champlain border crossing. Popular for many Canadians, gets about 100,000 visitors a year. The Beekmantown Gateway Information Center has been closed since the start of the pandemic. The restrooms have been open, but the Info Center that lets visitors know where they can eat and shop and stay has been closed since March 2020. And last year it lost its funding, something that you and community business leaders, hospitality industry folks are hoping to address and change. You're hoping to get that funding back in the budget.
More important than anything, it provides a welcoming face, that friendly face, welcoming them to New York State, welcoming them to the North Country, and answering their questions and making their first impression of this area a pleasant and helpful one.
The center is critical in that it sends a welcome message to our travelers that there is a reason to come visit and spend time here in the North Country.
It is a gateway for our friends and neighbors, from the north. We've had the border closure, we've had all these issues with, the pandemic, and to have that facility shuttered right now is not fair. We saw the big, closed sign up there right now. It's a welcome center. It is important to have that center here because of its location, of course, and it's often the first thing that people coming in from Canada see. We need to open that facility back up, and that's what we're going to be fighting for, is to get funding in the budget.